Hello, and welcome to the Drug Discovery World podcast. My name is Giles, and I'm here to take you through another topical and insightful article from Drug Discovery World. Today's episode is an article from our spring 2010 issue, and is part one of two articles, titled An Overview of Companion Diagnostics in the Pharmaceutical Industry. It's worth bearing in mind that this article was from 2010, so some statistics, etc. may have changed slightly. However, the bulk of the content is still extremely relevant to today, and we have chosen this particular article as it is one of the most popular and useful on the Drug Discovery World website. The article was written by Dr. Stephen Naylor, founder, president, and chairman of MaiHealth Inc, and Toby Cole, founder of Triad Group, a consulting company in the arena of high-tech startups. Current escalating costs of drug discovery, development, and drug launch continue to concern the pharmaceutical sector. This has been compounded by the advent of personalized medicine and its associated demands for individualized products, as well as the demise of the blockbuster model. In order to satisfy the demands afforded by this new paradigm, the next generation of drugs has to be safer and more efficacious, and pharmaceutical companies must produce more genotype and/or phenotype-focused therapeutic agents. The development of companion diagnostics appears to offer a set of tools, as well as the portent of relevant biological and clinical information that addresses many of the problems that the pharmaceutical companies must overcome. Here, we describe the current state of companion diagnostics and its impact on the pharmaceutical sector. We discuss the need for companion diagnostics in the drug discovery and development process. This perspective is augmented by a consideration of the development of companion diagnostics, as well as a listing of the major companies providing tools, technologies, markers, and services in this rapidly growing area. Pharmaceutical companies have been subject to a plethora of external forces that have forced internal changes over the past 20 years. The 1990s saw the development of numerous high-throughput analytical platforms in conjunction with powerful IT and bioinformatics tools that produced the decade of measurements and omic wave technologies. The subsequent integration of all these tools and technologies led to the advent of second-generation systems biology in the late 1990s. In parallel, there was a surge in the growth of biomarker use and a rush by pharmaceutical companies to adopt and adapt such technologies for application in their drug discovery and development processes. Much of this change was driven and facilitated by the scientific and pharmaceutical communities without significant outside independent analysis and critique. In the late 1990s and into the noughties, 2000 and beyond, a series of additional changes was buffeting medical communities and healthcare systems across Europe, North and South America, and parts of Asia. The initial impetus was driven by recognition that our understanding of disease etiology, onset, progression, treatment, and outcome was limited. Current medical practice at the time focused on being reactionary, and the physician attempted to treat symptoms, and hence not the individual patient. This limitation of medical practice led to a grassroots level recognition and demand for better service and treatment of the individual patient, and thus was born personalized medicine. The continued development of personalized medicine and its ready adoption by the general public has forced most healthcare systems to consider how they provide more efficient, cheaper, and relevant services to their patients. The advent of personalized medicine and recognition of human complexity and variability has forced pharmaceutical companies to reconsider their current business model. There is now a general consensus that the blockbuster model has significant limitations, and that the future must include therapeutic agents that are more closely tailored to specific patient populations. By necessity, this must mean that such drugs are safer, more efficacious, more specific, and less costly to develop. The demands and constraints imposed by such a demanding new model have had the pharmaceutical companies rushing to inspect their technology toolkits for answers. One solution that has been somewhat embraced and cautiously adopted is companion diagnostics. In this episode, we will provide a broad overview of companion diagnostic efforts in the pharmaceutical sector. We will discuss the development and current status of this area, as well as who are the key suppliers of companion diagnostics markers and services to the pharmaceutical sector. Factors in companion diagnostic adoption. Historically, our understanding of disease etiology and pathobiology was predicated on simple observations of physiological changes and homeostatic imbalance. More recently, this concept has been replaced with an understanding that disease causality and onset is a complex multi-component process. For example, breast cancer is now categorized into at least 5 distinct subtypes, and there may indeed be other unique molecular types. Our inability to unravel the complexity of disease onset, progression, and ensuing treatment has led to escalating healthcare costs. In turn, this has had a concomitant impact on all strata of society, but particularly it has negatively affected the poor and elderly. Efforts to offer universal healthcare are a paramount driving force in most developed and developing countries. However, such efforts come at a substantial cost. The OECD estimates that healthcare costs have increased more than 4% annually in member countries in the past decade. In addition, the resultant effects of increased spending have had mixed results depending on country and focus of the specific healthcare system. It is noteworthy that the USA spends by far the largest percentage of GDP on healthcare compared to Switzerland, United Kingdom, and Japan. This is in stark contrast to outcome as measured by life expectancy and percentage of the population afflicted with diabetes, obesity, and asthma hospital admission rates. The US population has the shortest lifespan expectancy for, and the highest incidence rate of, diabetes, obesity, and asthma compared to the UK, Switzerland, and Japan. Rising healthcare costs are also influenced by ever-increasing drug discovery and development costs, as well as the limited efficacy and safety of the resultant commercially available drugs. For example, the Parexel report states that the general consensus for the developmental cost of a new molecular entity is $1.4 billion. The cost is driven in part by long and tedious timeline to develop the new compound, which can still take as long as 15 years. Unfortunately, this long time period does not necessarily guarantee that a drug is either efficacious or completely safe. The efficacy of a specific drug can vary from approximately 30 to 75%, depending on the drug class and therapeutic use. In addition, most consumers are aware of the potential side effects from therapeutic drugs, as well as the widely publicized safety concerns of drugs such as Vioxx and Avandia. The demands of a relatively well-informed patient, consumer aware of personalized medicine, and the necessity of treating the individual or specific patient populations, rather than an ill-defined population, have significantly changed the business landscape for pharmaceutical companies. Companies are aware of the need to produce cheaper, safer, more efficacious products that meet the growing demand of tailor-made products. In order to achieve this goal, the drug discovery and development process pipeline has to be made more biologically and clinically transparent, so that issues such as toxicity, adverse events, and patient stratification can be much more readily detected and explained. This should facilitate decision-making events along the drug discovery and development process, allowing cost-cutting and ultimately better products for defined patient populations. Pharmaceutical companies believe that companion diagnostic products afford biological information tools that will promote such activities. Definition of companion diagnostics. The evolutionary process of a nascent and emerging discipline is embodied by chaos, confusion, and circumlocution. In that regard, the adoption and growth of companion diagnostics by and of the various stakeholders is no different. Indeed, much of the current process is similar to that observed during the initial flurry of activity and excitement surrounding the biomarker sector. As expected, the lexicon of this field is still evolving, and there are competing synonyms for companion diagnostics that include pharmacodiagnostic and theranostic descriptors. For example, Dako, which developed the Hercept test, used in conjunction with the Herceptin to treat metastatic breast cancer, defines a pharmacodiagnostic as diagnostic test employed to identify cancer patients eligible for treatment with targeted therapies. Lesko at the FDA has defined a pharmacodiagnostic output as a characteristic that is objectively measured and evaluated as an indication of normal processes, pathogenic processes, or pharmacological responses to a therapeutic intervention. In the case of theranostics, an early definition provided was a term used to describe the proposed process of diagnostic therapy for individual patients, to test them for possible reaction to taking a new medication and to tailor treatment for them based on the test results. More recently, the term has found expanded use, and Schloss described theranostics in a variety of ways that included a system combining diagnosis, therapy, and monitoring. The index pharmab.com defines a companion diagnostic as a bioanalytical method designed to assess whether a patient will respond favorably to a specific medical treatment or not. A more recent definition describes a companion diagnostic as the particular diagnostic test under evaluation that is specifically linked to a known therapeutic drug. This linkage could be important in a therapeutic application and clinical outcome of a drug, personalized medicine, or an important component of the drug development process. There appears to be widespread agreement that a companion diagnostic is a biomarker used in a specific context that provides biological and/or clinical information that enables better decision-making about the development and use of a potential drug therapy. This can be applied anywhere along the preclinical, clinical, and post-product launch of the drug. Indeed, Freud has argued that any type of biomarker involved in making a therapy decision can be classified as a companion diagnostic. Clearly, this debate will continue, and the terminology plus definitions will continue to evolve and be refined, as happened in the development of biomarkers. Stakeholders and their needs. Historically, pharmaceutical companies have enjoyed a dominant role in the discovery, development, marketing, and post-marketing surveillance of their therapeutic drug products. However, with the advent of an informed patient base, personalized medicine, and the need for companion diagnostics, along with associated domain expertise, the landscape has changed. Hence, pharmaceutical companies must recognize that other stakeholders exist, and their needs and goals may be different. This recognition will go some way to ensure that companion diagnostics are employed correctly in order to meet the expectations of the other stakeholders and have real impact on the quality and therapeutic effect of the therapeutic drugs produced. All the different stakeholders have obvious vested interests in the development and use of companion diagnostic tests. In some cases, those interests may be radically divergent, as in the case of the cost and price of the companion diagnostic test. The companion diagnostic manufacturer, as well as the laboratory testing facility, would prefer to realize a high margin on the price charged to the end user, whereas the patient would obviously prefer to pay a minimal price accompanied by maximum information content for their disease management. However, there is considerable agreement as to the importance of a number of issues across all stakeholders. Finley Austin refers to this as the all roads lead to Rome syndrome. There is a widespread agreement that the clinical utility is of paramount importance. The companion diagnostic test clearly must provide meaningful clinical insight as well as change current medical practice and patient outcome. Similarly, albeit for different reasons, all stakeholders concur that the companion diagnostic test must be accurate and provide clinical information content that can be reliably used in disease management. The test must be based on a foundation of data that shows good specificity and sensitivity through appropriate clinical trials. These encompassing stakeholder goals appear to afford some optimism for future development of companion diagnostics. However, this simplistic analysis ignores the many considerable barriers that exist between all the stakeholders. The demands and expectations of the patient who needs a cheap or free marker that provides valuable clinical information to help him/her better manage the disease is in stark contrast to the companion diagnostic company, which has expanded considerable financial assets to produce a clinically relevant biomarker and is looking to recoup those sunken costs and build a successful business. The pharmaceutical companies, who have no experience in marker diagnostic discovery and development, are unsure as to the monetary value of companion diagnostics, and business models involving pharmaceutical companies and companion diagnostic companies are still evolving. However, in all cases, it is imperative that lines of communication are developed in order to ensure the successful development and acceptance of high-quality companion diagnostics continues into the future. Current status. Regulatory agencies, including the FDA and the EMEA, are now actively encouraging the use of companion diagnostics in the development and use of prescription drugs. This guidance initially started back in 2004 in the form of an FDA Critical Path Initiative and the white paper entitled Innovation Stagnation, Challenge and Opportunity on the Critical Path to New Medical Products. This was followed by the Drug Diagnostic Co. Development Concept Paper in 2005. Today, both the FDA and EMEA require companion diagnostic marker testing prior to the prescribing of certain drugs. At present, 4 companion diagnostic markers are required by the FDA to be tested before deciding the therapeutic drug use. The list includes CCR5, chemokine, CC motif receptor, epidermal growth factor receptor, EGFR, HER2/NEU overexpression, and Philadelphia chromosome-sensitive responders. The EMEA has been less transparent in its leadership role regarding companion diagnostics. However, at least 11 therapeutic drugs now require companion diagnostic testing. It should be noted that the EMEA requirements are somewhat different from the FDA in that the former requires that you start with the drug that requires a companion diagnostic test, rather than with the biomarker which needs to be tested for initially. It is interesting to note that there are now also cross-communication efforts between the FDA, EMEA, and Japanese regulatory authorities. This international cooperation has been facilitated through the Critical Path Institute, CPATH. The latter acted as a neutral third party with whom pharmaceutical companies have been willing to share proprietary data. CPATH is a non-profit organization founded in 2005 out of the University of Arizona and is based in Tucson. The institute has broad general interest in personalized medicine, but also has specific interests in companion diagnostics. It is imperative that pan-national efforts are made to ensure that regulations are similar for pharmaceutical companies that develop and sell their therapeutic products. In that regard, the companion diagnostics arena is in a state of flux. The pharmaceutical sector is taking a cautious but embracing approach to companion diagnostic adoption. However, new companion diagnostic companies are emerging and old, established companies are switching focus to provide the tools, technologies, and services needed by pharmaceutical companies to ensure efficient therapeutic drug development and global distribution. Companion diagnostic deals. Several themes emerge out of an analysis of recent companion diagnostic deals. 1. Oncology is the most active area to attract companion diagnostic tests. 2. Pharmaceutical companies are the key drivers in signing companion diagnostic deals. 3. Several niche specialists in the companion diagnostic arena have emerged. The major diagnostic companies have, for the present, not entered this market sector. Oncology companion diagnostics. As mentioned previously, much of the activity in companion diagnostics has been focused in the area of oncology. A number of companion diagnostic markers have been developed for targeted therapeutics. More recently, the wild-type KRAS gene has been identified as a predictor of treatment response to Erbitux, as well as Victibex. In addition, there has been considerable activity in the use of companion diagnostic markers to predict toxicity, efficacy, and drug dosage in order to ensure hitting critical endpoints. As mentioned above, new therapies need to demonstrate a significant improvement over existing treatments by selectively targeting responsive patient populations to enhance efficacy and lower toxicity in order to overcome those hurdles. One such example in the oncology field is the attempt by Bristol Myers Squibb to gain regulatory approval for its breast cancer drug, Sprycel. Researchers studied a panel of biomarkers, characterized the ideal responders to the therapy, and are using these data to screen for clinical trial candidates. Summary. The growth of the companion diagnostic sector has been significant in the past several years. This is evidenced by the number of major pharmaceutical companies undertaking deals, as well as the number of companion diagnostic companies. There appears to be widespread acceptance of the potential value of companion diagnostics. The regulatory authorities, including the FDA and EMEA, are moving down a pathway of accepting and in some cases demanding the use of companion diagnostics in conjunction with specific therapeutic drug. Based on the current optimism, it is possible that companion diagnostics affords part of the panacea needed to produce cheaper, safer, more efficacious drugs. The field is too nascent for any realistic determination of the impact of companion diagnostics on the drug discovery and development process and product launch success. The many stakeholders appear to have common goals, but all speak very different languages. They all have different expectations and are driven by very different goals and needs. This raises some cause for concern. But as discussed, provided there are lines of communication established and willingness for stakeholder groups to educate each other, this may not create insurmountable hurdles. Time will tell. In this episode, we have attempted to provide an overview of the companion diagnostics sector. In the subsequent episode, we will discuss in more detail the difficulties of constructing companion diagnostic pharma business deals, as well as regulatory issues that are looming on the near horizon. This article was written by Dr. Stephen Naylor, founder, president and chairman of MaiHealth Inc, a molecular bioprofile diagnostics company in the health and wellness sector. It was also written by Toby Cole, who is founder of Triad Group, a consulting company in the arena of high-tech startups, whose expertise resides in company startups, mergers and acquisitions, and investment banking. If you've enjoyed this episode and want more from DDW, then you can subscribe to the journal and get the latest issues delivered to you via post or electronically, completely free of charge. Just head to ddw-online.com and you can subscribe there, as well as read further articles and view PDFs of past articles in our PDF archive. If you've enjoyed the podcast and found it useful, then please leave us a review, as we'd love to get your feedback. As we're quite a new podcast, your reviews and feedback really do help us and mean a lot. So thanks for listening, and we hope to see you in our next episode.